everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where we are currently broadcasting live from Pause on Air, which is kind of neat. This is a kind of a FileMaker conference, but it's not an official conference because Claris really hasn't done an official conference in like 4 years. And so these conferences have been going on anyway. It's a smaller group of people, typically people that are pretty hardcore FileMaker developers are here. It's about 100 people. And so I am broadcasting here for the next several days and then into next week. We are continuing our conversation. Margaret, if you want to bring up the upcoming broadcast schedule for us, we are continuing to bring the conversation on FileMaker for Beginners, Law and Disorder, 30 days for FileMaker Beginners. If you take a look at the schedule, if you go to fmtrain.tv and you'll see the tab on the left, it should kind of default to this tab, but you'll see the upcoming broadcast schedule and what we have going. And so today is going to be on import and exporting. I really want this to be useful for the people who are out there who are new to the FileMaker platform. Please ask questions, right? Because it helps me understand where I'm going with my training. If I haven't answered something well, if you don't understand something, I'm not going to lie to you. There are such things as dumb questions, but really in terms of importing, exporting, there really aren't any dumb questions for us here, right? Like if you call me and say, does the sun come up or does the sun revolve around the moon? That's a dumb question. However, so I'm not going to lie to you. However, importing, exporting FileMaker, everything's fair game, even if it's basic. Like you've never done importing, exporting before and you have questions, please ask the questions today. Tomorrow's going to be on understanding portals. Portals is a follow-on conversation to the relationship question. I think doing relationships is probably mentally one of the hardest things people have to wrap their heads around. If you understand relationships and understanding portals is pretty I don't want to say easy, but it's a fairly solid stepping stone. It's not crazy difficult. Then on Thursday, we're going to have reports and sub summaries. That'll be fun. I'll make sure I set some time aside so we're good for that. Friday, multi-user, single user. That will be someone else presenting on Friday. I'm not sure who that'll be. No, it won't be me or Calvin. We might have to get Jay or someone else to cover that. But the single user versus multi-user, it's like when you build a local solution and how is it different than a multi-user solution? At a beginner level, you don't care. You don't worry about it all. You just want FileMaker to work. Once you get it working, then you want to share it with someone. And then these issues, initially you won't notice anything. It'll just work great. It'll work perfect. And then suddenly along the line, you go, hey, that didn't work right. Didn't work the way I expected. And then you realize there's little subtle differences, but they're not earth-shattering, right? Literally, I'm covering beginning or multi-user and single user because it should be covered. But if you go and you work every day in FileMaker and you're learning this stuff, you're going to discover this on your own anyway. So I'm just kind of cutting your learning curve, making you smarter, faster. We should have a website, making people smarter, faster, fmtraining.tv with the FileMaker platform. All right, so Margaret, you're up on Discord and YouTube. I've got good internet here where I'm at for the moment. We're going to talk about importing and exporting in and out of the FileMaker platform. So I have some curriculum. We can go through the curriculum, but does anyone have any opening questions about imports or exports? If they come up with a question.
If there's questions, I will interrupt you, but currently there are no questions.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt. So here's how this works. Here's a short version of this. As a FileMaker developer, you're building an app to help people. You're going to structure a data system. Structure data system is this. It's actually very goofy, not very precise, but it's really a good description of what you're doing. So you're structuring, designing screens and fields and layouts that are going to help a business or organization do a job more efficiently. The FileMaker platform is fantastic, and I mean that with an F, fantastic, for helping people do jobs better, faster, right? So it's a great platform. I love it. I've been doing it for 33 years. So importing, exporting has been a long-standing feature. It was a feature in the product since the day I came in 1991, when I started the FileMaker platform, working in the platform. Import and exporting has been there. It's got a little bit better and different along the way, but at the end of the day, it hasn't changed. So importing is bringing data in. Typically, when people say an import, it just means loading the data. Now, a lot of times in the old days, we would load data from like a CSV file. This is like an Excel file right here. You have some sort of data, and then someone says, hey, I want this data to be put in my FileMaker file. And it's a person that you work for or the person that's paying you. And so somehow you have to get that data in there. So there's an import command, aka import script step. A command, when I say an import command, that's a manual thing. It's something that you would click over here and you would come up in FileMaker, say file, and you go down to import records, and then you're going to decide you're going to import. So import a file is normal. Import a folder is, I think, kind of goofy, and it's something that Nick would do. And I don't even know if there's import folder even on Windows for the window people out there. If you want to confirm the import folders in there, I think that might be a Mac only thing. Anyway, this is the manual command. This is a command that none of your end users should really use. The import command you could manually activate if you were going to do a one-time import. Doing a one-time import. Just understand that there's benefits and reasons that you try to use the import command, but really it's not the best way forward. There's the import script step. Margaret, we've talked about scripts. We talked about scripts. There's the import script step is identical to what's under this one over here. They're identical, except when it's in a script, as you make changes to it, and you save the script, it saves the changes. If you do an import over here and you do a lot of work to align the fields have to align. So if you have a column, we're going to have to tell FileMaker that if we have a column, so if you were having this situation, we're going to say, we're going to line up the company name, and it's going to go over here into this company name right here. Then you have to align that. If you use the manual script step, then, and somehow you crash FileMaker, you forget about it, you go home, you quit FileMaker, it's going to forget the little alignment settings you made. So doing it with a script, you do it the same way, but you save the script. So you save your progress, because here's the reality of imports and exports. When you do an import, to get them to work correctly, you're going to do them 5 or 10 times, and you're going to do it, and it's wrong. And you're going to do it. It's better, but it's wrong. You're going to do it. You're going to put the company name. The company name went in here, but you have the last and the first names flipped, or you have a fax number and a cell phone number and a landline number for someone, and they weren't labeled well, and they went into the wrong holes. You'll see how that works. And so doing it in a script, just having a script, like a one-off script that you create a brand new script, and you say, you're going to say, import or whatever you're going to do, right? So here's your import script step. Just come over here and maybe make a comment about why you're doing this. We all comment our scripts, right? We make little notes about how and why we do what we do. I'm going to say import, start typing import, and it says import records, bang, okay? And so then when you do the import, you're going to target the file that's on your computer at the moment. Let's start basic, import the file, specify the data source. You're going to add the file. The file is this thing on the desktop. I have this 500 CSV thing, okay? We're going to say import it, okay? And it talks about you could play with this. I could spend time explaining to it, but the first row might be names of fields and they might just be data. You have to experiment with that. So what we have right here is that you say, specify the import order. This is a thing that will always get boogered up. You're never going to do it right the first time unless you have 3 fields and you've got 10 years of experience. You might get it right the first time. Almost no one gets it right the first time. So we're going to say specify the import order. And we're going to say, and for this training today, we're only talking about adding records. There's updating records or replacing records. That's a bunch of fancy stuff. 99% of the people out there who do an import new records. Okay. There's other options here. Just know that they're here. You could import where it replaces some of them based upon a key, right? That gets back the kind of idea of relationship. You can replace records, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so we're just going to add, we're saying we're fine. We're good with adding. This is the lineup part, right? So what you have is you're going to grab, can I remember how this works? How does this work? Oh, that's right. They changed this several years ago. So what you do is you come over, you select, and we have first name, title. Now notice it says company over here. So this is the data, the source data. I can flip through and I can kind of see this data. A lot of the times you'll get an import and it won't be labeled. This one, conveniently enough, because it's a sample, it says, that's the company name. But what if your first record was like this? And you look down here and you say, well, dang, is that the cell phone or the fax number or their mobile line? Or if you have a pager from 1995, the 90s are calling you, they want their pager back, pager number. So what you have to do is you have to come over here and you have to say, you click on this and you're going to say phone, right? You're going to find the keyword and you say that's phone 2 or phone 1. Then you got to click on this. And if the box is blank, then it's not being used. If the box has a little arrow on it, it's being used in this list somewhere. And so we identified this. Where did this come from? This over here is we're specifying the target, the source and the destination. So it's like you're going to pick up your wife at the airline and The source is where she originated from, and the destination is where her plane landed, right? Unless it crashed in the ocean, in which case you'll need a new wife, right? But you get the idea. She should land in one place on the destination, right? There's the target. You can specify different areas. Generally, it's what you want to do is be on the layout where you want to import into. So I was already on contacts. Then you initiate this script from the contacts layout or some layout that's tied that way. So questions, Margaret?
Oh, people said that they can confirm that importing records from a folder is supported on Windows. So
okay, in a folder from Windows. Yeah, that's interesting. That came out originally on the Mac, and then I think Claris took a lot of errors and they had to fix that. So the idea is that you're going to go through this process of trying to line things up. You say, okay. Then if you save the script, right, you come over here, the little stars right there. I'm going to hit Command or Control S. It'll save the script. So now that's preserved. So then when you run this, I say run it, and it does this. Oh, okay, hit me cancel. Let me go back over here to scripts. So one of the things is that you could suppress the dialogue. So dialogue on, might as well turn the dialogue off because you want it to change it, save the script, then run it is what you want to do. That's the best way. So I'm going to have the dialogue off, save it, and then I'm going to run it just to see what happens. So now we get a found set of there's 505 records in here. There were already 4 records in here previously, right? If I hit this, it flips the found set. So there's the 4 I had before. This is the 501 records that were in that record. As you can see, the first record came across and it had the labels in it, but they're not all perfectly straight. The company's in the title, the company's blank here, the fax is there, the fax should be down here. So there's not great alignment. But because it's saved in a script, you can rest assured that even if FileMaker crashes right now, I'm going to crash FileMaker. I crashed FileMaker, but my work has not been lost. Okay. My work has not been lost. Now I've force quit a file right here. For demonstration purposes, I'm showing you that you don't lose your work. This file right here would be one I wouldn't want to use anymore because I didn't close it safely. As a beginner, as a reminder, if you're doing development, you want to make backups all the time. If you start crashing your file, you run the risk of damaging your FileMaker file. It's this little file right here. Really, I could open it up, but if you crash something once or twice, is it damaged? Probably not. If you crash it 10 or 20 times cumulatively over a year or two, you might have damage in there. So you really need to avoid that. Once again, the stunts performed by your host today should not be performed by people with less experience. Viewer discretion is advised. Okay.
we do have a question.
Yes.
From Power Eagle. Could the database import or export be automated?
Yes. Well, within a script. So back up. I think we have a show coming up on automation, but the fact that it's in a script means it's a program. And scripts are just a fancy word for a computer program. The trick is where you would automate it. Like what would trigger the script, right? You have a button that triggers a script. You can have a server on a timer that triggers a script, right? And you can, using more advanced techniques, which is beyond the realm of basic beginners, you can do imports through what we would call an API and import data from some other online service. That could be scripted, that could be timed with a script. So with a FileMaker server, you can specify that this script is run on a certain time. You don't set a schedule up in here. So you do it with the server. You could do it with a robot. So we'll probably have an automation live stream that's coming up. We have some videos in our paid video course. It's kind of, this is a lightweight version of our video course. If you don't have that, think about doing that. Real quick, for those of you wondering about this, like, hey, Richard is not talking about a topic today that I care about, right? Well, the way you solve that problem is you spend a couple bucks and you support the channel. I'm just going to show you this real quick. You go to fmtrain.tv. Of course, this is our live schedule right here. And what you do is you pick one of our bundles right here, and that would give you access to our paid training. You'd find the automation conversation in the pro video course, but really it's part of the FileMaker server, right? Really part of FileMaker server that you would run. You could schedule it, but it could be activated by a button or by a trigger. Have we talked about triggers yet, Margaret? I don't think so. Maybe
no, we have not remotely touched triggers. So
okay, so we'll have to do that at some point. Yes, you can. Are we covering it today? Not really, no. So the idea, though, is that we crashed FileMaker. I went down here to import. Now, if the file had been running on FileMaker server and I'd accessed it, and then I still crashed locally, the file would be protected. That's why you run things on FileMaker server. Once you get past the beginner, I'm a prototype developer, I'm brand new, As you build important solutions that you want to share, that you're being compensated to build for by someone, even if you're a beginner, you could get paid to build a solution. Maybe you don't get a ton of money, but you make some money. It'd be worthwhile. But the whole idea is that if the file's on the server registers the user as being disconnected. It safely protects the FileMaker file. That's the whole point. So if the file's on the FileMaker server and you crash, we don't care. If you're on FileMaker Go and you take a phone call and you get disconnected, we don't care. If you're on a browser and you're connected through WebDirect, we don't care. It's totally protected. But if it's running locally on your Mac or Windows computer, or really on Go, and you crash FileMaker, then the file wasn't closed properly. That's just not ideal. Okay. So this is this import step right here. We come back over here. We can look at the import order. I double clicked it. We get the import order and we can see that we were already monkeying with it, moving things around, right? See how we're moving things around. So we would continue that process. So the import is really understanding that generally when you import out of a text file, out of an Excel file, if you import out of anything except another FileMaker file, the import is going to import all the records out of the Excel or whatever the source is file that you have. Typically, you're going to import out of a text, a comma file, delimited file, a tab delimited file, a merge file. There's a bunch of different formats that you can select over here. Tab commas, and there's other ones that can be supported as well. So Windows, and it gives you this kind of the same. And you can specify a different delimiter that's in there. It's pretty sophisticated. But now, if you're importing from one FileMaker file to another FileMaker file, if the source FileMaker file is closed, you will get all the records in the table. So this is if you're new to FileMaker, and you haven't heard this before, put your cell phone down, listen carefully. Very important. I didn't even know this for like a year. I kind of worked around it, back 30 years ago. I'm like, that's why that works that way. If the FileMaker file that's over here, the source, is closed, you will import all the records out of whatever the source table is. But I want to import just the 500 people that have the last name of Carlton. Or people that like black helicopters, do search black helicopters. I got 21 people that love black helicopters. Okay, great. I want to import those 21 people. It's in a FileMaker file, but there's 1 million records in there. So I want to import 21 records from the million. How do you do that? With your script, you would have already been over here. You had already been over here somehow with your script. The other file would have been, already open. Open the other FileMaker file, or maybe you're in the same table, so it's already open. Right? But you want to go to a layout for that table and do a found set and leave it open. So say we're in two different file A, file B. We're importing into file B. We're going to open file A, go to the found set of 1 million records, do a search. We talked about scripting searches, I think. If we haven't, we should. It's one of the basic things that we do. You do a search. Put the word black helicopter in a field in there that they're special interests, 21 records. So it has that found set. You don't close the file, you don't close the window, you leave it. Then your script jumps back over here and you do the import. Then when you do the import, the FileMaker will say, the file's open, 1, 2, there's a found set. I'm only going to bring those found set over. Okay. So if the FileMaker, now you could also go to that window and say, show all, you get all of them. That you could do that too. But remember, the default behavior is bring them all over if the file is closed. Now, if you're importing from one table to another table in the same file, the file A is already open. So you need to go to the appropriate layout, do a found set. So it's in there, and then come back to your contacts over here. Maybe go to accounts or, staff. You go to staff, find the staff records, do a found set, then come back over here and then run your import command. But it's an important step. And the script steps on here, very basic, right? Very basic. So once again, while you could run the import manually up here, you want to do it over here because and you save your script, it preserves your forward progress. You don't lose your forward progress. Some of you are going to know what I'm talking about. You're like, I don't want to bother with the script. Okay. Then you don't do it. And then you do 7 or 8 imports. You almost have it done. You spent 3 hours on it and your FileMaker client crashes. The file's on server, so it's still protected, but you still lost 3 hours worth of forward progress. So that's the saving thing in there.
So question, to import, do you need to be local or can you connect to like an Excel online or Google Sheet online?
Well, back in the old days, you would have a mounted volume over here, a mounted volume. And so you would have a file server, right? That's a file server, right? Or in Dropbox or something, right? People can import out of Dropbox, right? If you have an Excel spreadsheet that's always put in the same, here's the deal. If you're doing a one-off, then I imagine you'll move it down to your local computer. There's no direct function here. You have to have a mounted volume like OneDrive or something like that. Have a drive. You can double click, get into it. Then you can tell FileMaker on the import that the path, if you, let me see if we go back over here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to click on the gear thing. I'm going to specify the data source. So XML and ODBC are definitely senior experience level people with lots of programming time, right? So you have an ODBC data source. It's an online data source. What you would do if you were doing this to an API service, you would do an insert from URL. Insert from URL essentially is going to allow you to do a data dump from an online service. This is once again advanced senior level stuff, but you have to target. So if you get to your Google Documents, I don't use Google Docs. If your Google Docs are buried under some menu up here, then you have to find a way of targeting that directory on your computer. Basically, we're targeting, hard drive / C drive / program / FileMaker / whatever. Even the Mac, Linux, they all work the same way. The file has to be in a location you can describe with a path, or you have to use an API and an insert from URL to go and get it. Okay. That makes sense. That's definitely as much as everyone wants that as a beginning developer. Like I want to import all the sales I made I'm making a shopping cart. I have a shopping cart in a Zoho or Sugar CRM or pick some CRM system, Shopify, right? It's another one. You would get data out of there using an insert from URL, essentially an import command, but it's very advanced. It's not simple. Claris is trying to make that simple with Claris Connect. They have yet to actually fully figure that out to the point where beginners can actually use it effectively, I think. Maybe someday soon, I hope. But anyway, so did I answer that question, Margaret? You have to be able to target it if you have a mounted volume on your Mac or Windows computer.
Since I use Google Drive, it's an easy way to store Word files or not like written stuff. There's a way to download everything on Google Drive as like an Excel or a Word file, or I think even text, just like straight text. So even if you can't access it online, you can easily download and then it'll drop a local file onto your desktop that you can promptly export or import from. So we do
We're
have
answering
another
questions.
question.
Yeah, go with question because we're going to pivot to exports a little bit here, which are kind of the same but different.
Could Visual Fox Pro databases be imported to FileMaker?
There's no direct connectivity out of Fox into FileMaker. What you're going to do is you're going to export out of Fox. You're going to run an export command. The export command in FileMaker is very simple. Import and export commands across data systems are really very similar. Okay. You're going to go into Fox, you can export the data out, but then you're going to end up with data that looks a whole lot like this, right? That's not a database, that's a spreadsheet. That's, and that just it's an intermediary. It's like, yeah, it's a halfway house between, where you start and where you want to be, right? And then you have to import it into FileMaker. You still have to build the structure in FileMaker, right? So when people come to us and say they want a Fox database built in FileMaker, largely we take screenshots. We figure out what worked about their solution, what they liked about the solution. We take screenshots and we might model it loosely the way Fox looked, but we try to take all the benefits of what they liked about their Fox solution, remove the negatives, fix the missing pieces, and make a better solution, then import the data over, right? So there's no like auto convert in 10 minutes and then you've converted from Fox to generally in data systems, that doesn't exist. I mean, you go from one MySQL database to another MySQL database, I suppose, right? But within the world of like, I want to go from FileMaker to Access to SQL to Oracle to Airtable to stuff like that. There are no there are people who try to pitch magical translators, but that doesn't really work. The people who try that aren't generally at the end of the day very happy individuals. They're not satisfied with the results. If you're in Fox, you're on a dead platform, you know that. right? And the corpse is starting to smell, the body's starting to smell. You should have buried it, right? And I'm not being mean, it just is what it is, right? FileMaker's been around 33 years. It's used by Apple. It's not going anywhere, right? So yeah, you need to migrate that. So yeah.
Next one. Does the import found set from an open file use the found set of the importing user or any other user?
It's a session specific scenario. So the found set is whatever you have in your session. So this gets back to Friday's conversation about sessions. So multi-user versus single user. If I'm in FileMaker and I'm over here, if I say this is a shared solution and I see 505 records, Margaret sees 505 records. If you're logged into it, you see 505. If I do a find for R over here and I do a return, I have one record, one last name that starts with R. I have a found set of one. Even though I could have 500 other people logged into the FileMaker system looking at the same layout, the same screen here, everyone would have their own found set, their own sort state, and could be flipping through their own records, right? So you can't see what other people are doing generally, right? You can't see what they're doing. Even as an administrator, you can try to trap for, like, if they run a script, you can make a little log that they went somewhere and did something, but you really don't have like a really super, like a screen share. Oh, what's Fred doing? Oh, Fred's not working. He's playing Tetris on his computer, right? Or something, right? The issue becomes one that sessions are completely separate, right? And they're not cross-pollinating. So you have to establish the found set on your side before you can control what that import looks like. Okay. So let's talk about exporting real quick. Exporting is essentially the identical inverse of the import. You're taking data out of FileMaker generally. You're generally going to put it into a format, typically for most people, that'll be a spreadsheet. Someone says, hey, I want to export to a PDF. In the world of at least FileMaker, that is not an export function. Generally, that is a print function. So you can print to a PDF because PDF represents paper for the most part. So the way most computers handle PDFs is that they treat it as a print job that just didn't use any paper. Okay, so if you were in File down to Print, there's also you could, on the Mac, you could print directly. If I go to Print, there's also an option right here. You go to PDF, so it skips all that other stuff, right? But you also have a script step under FileMaker called Save as PDF, right? So it bypasses the operating system level PDF creation. It's this one right here. There's a script step for save or send as PDF. Okay, so this is really a print job. This is not an export. Okay, now because what it's going to do, it's going to mix the layout like a print job. If I go to preview, this is what the piece of paper will look like. This is what your PDF is going to look like. Okay. If you're just trying to export data out of FileMaker for SQL or something, the SQL people are going to if you give them this. They're going to be like, hey, you're not a very smart person. You gave us a big PDF. We can't do anything with that. We want stuff like this over here. Now, I will tell you that on the advanced side of things, Nick Hunter, who does our advanced live streams, is using AI to have the AI help find the relevant data in a PDF and bring it forward into FileMaker and automate some really tedious. I'm just giving you direction on where that could be, but that's a senior level thing. People think Chat GDP is an AI thing. It's this great thing. It's going to replace developers. The people are really using it successfully are very senior developers, and they're doing some really precision coding with it. It's trying to explain to the AI what you want with precision is difficult. And because you're not really talking to a human. Or imagine you take someone off the street and you try to explain to them, I want you to find every page of this PDF as I flip through pages here. And every page, you're going to be looking for this field over here in this spot. And that's going to be the first name field. How many sentences of instructions would you have to give some random tech person off the street to do that? Quite a few. Well, ChatGPT is at least that bad, if not worse. So that's a very senior level conversation. Nick's been doing it. We have live streams on it. So understand it's doable. And that's where the AI stuff is really interesting these days. I've talked to other development companies and stuff. So exports are going to be, the target is once again to go back here. You could also, using advanced skills, export using the insert from URL to push data back through an API to an online service. right? So, oh, I've got new widgets. I sell black helicopters. The helicopter, the cost of rotor blades has gone up, so we're going to raise the price of helicopter 5% due to inflation. So I've got a price change. It's in FileMaker. We have to notify Shopify. We could do it by hand, or you could send an insert from URL command to take your data, essentially out of FileMaker, kind of export it and push the data. I would use the word push the data, push it to Shopify to update that data. Technically, it's kind of almost an export and then an import on their system. Makes sense? Once again, that's an advanced feature. The export is as simple as it sounds. You come over here, you go file, you say export. You're going to name the file, test, export. You're going to decide what kind of file you want to export as, comma separated. DBF is an older one. Merge is interesting. Most people either use tab, comma, or they use Excel. And because Excel is kind of Excel is XSLX or whatever. It's essentially kind of an open standard kind of. Microsoft probably wouldn't say it's open, but it's not encrypted or encoded in a way that makes it impossible to see it. So then I would say save. You could put some specific stuff in here about the worksheet or auth or whatever, continue. Then you would identify the fields you want to export and also the order that they're going to export, right? Pick the fields you're going to export. Once again, we did this manually with the script step. Once again, you want to do this with we did it manually with a manual command. You want to use a script step in a script to preserve your work. Same rule that I am applying. Just if you don't want to waste your time. If you don't mind redoing your work twice, getting paid once and doing it twice, then, feel free to do it the old fashioned way. So if I come over here, I save to the desktop, probably here it is right here. It's opening it. And I obviously had a very small found set and almost no useful data. So there we go.
That was the version of one found set. We do have a question. Is there a maximum amount of records that can be exported or imported?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know of a max, but I mean, you start getting into issues where FileMaker takes a performance dump, but it's in the 80, depends on what are in the records, right? Let's be clear about that. But if we're assuming like text data like this right here, so say like you have 50 or 80, 100 fields. I've got a database with 70 or 80 million records in it, right? I wouldn't want to export 80 million records. I guess you could. You might want to have the server do the export for you. So if the file was on the server, it'd be faster for the server to do a big dump like that, like millions and millions and millions of records, or you set your computer to do it and you go home at night and it comes back next day and it's done. It's also why, as a professional developer, most professional developers will have at least 2, if not 3 computers at their desk, because they need a backup computer in case the main one they're using takes a dump and quits working. I had some engineers that didn't understand this, and so one day they refused to buy other computers, and I RCC, and they were employees or W-2s, whatever. We made sure they had at least one computer, and I said, if you're a professional developer, you're making $150,000 a year, whatever you're doing, then you should have 2 computers. We don't want to buy a second computer. Okay, fine. Computer breaks down, and they're like, well, I just spent 2 days working my computer. I said, that's great, not billable to the customer, and don't bill me for it. You're a contractor. Wait a minute, I can't bill. And it suddenly occurred to them that if their computer takes they're unemployed. Oops. You could hear the balloon pop in their head where they figured out that wasn't good. So you want to have more than one computer because you don't want to have a financial dependency on one piece of hardware. And then if you're doing serious development, like I have on my desk, I have 2 Macs and a Windows machine. I make sure one of them is a Windows machine so I can test my stuff to make sure when my customer looks at it, my customer will think less of me if it looks like doo-doo. If you build stuff on the Mac, it'll work on Windows. If you build stuff on Windows, it works on the Mac and FileMaker. However, there might be a little font alignment issues. If you make something a little bit bigger on the Mac, it looks fine, but it looks better on Windows because it doesn't wrap. Does that make sense? So you really have to check on Windows, and you also have to check on WebDirect and on iOS. So you have potentially 4 platforms you need to check on. Just depends on who your target customers are. If you're in-house and everyone's using Windows, then build on Windows. Don't worry about anything else. So you could set one computer just to do like I used to have computer doing import for our customer. I was working at the customer site. I have another computer doing an export, and then I was doing coding or scripting on the third computer. And then I got to a point where I need a 4th computer, right? But, that's probably a little bit much. If you have at least 2, you're in pretty good shape. But if you have 1 million records processing or doing something, How many? I asked Christian also some of the other senior engineers. Yeah, they need more than one computer so they can stay busy. Let's go through the curriculum. Let's cover this real quick. So here's what we're going to do. We make it a little bigger. Here we go. So exporting from FileMaker, you have a source, you have a target. Talks about, historically IT people want certain types of files, stuff like that. That tends to change over time. Understand that if someone, here's a big issue for you, one that I haven't talked about. Someone says, "Hey, Megan, I don't know if Megan's here, or Power Eagle, Power Eagle. We want you to do an import for us. We're paying you to do an import. Here's a file." Okay. You get the file. You listen to Richard. Richard's smart. Richard's wise. You can do what Richard says. You work on a script. You have an import script step. You build it. You feel really good. You give it. The customer says, "That's so awesome. Okay, we're going to give you a new file every Monday." And you're like, "Okay, well, I can add that to my schedule Monday." You could try to automate it, but before you even get to automation, Power Eagle needs to go to the customer. It's like, "Hey, that file you sent me? It's really important that if we want to do it effectively, cost effectively, that it comes to me in the same format." "Oh, yeah. It'll be the same format." Okay. 50% of the time, that was a lie. They have no idea what you were talking about, and they just want you to go away. But they want the import to be done quickly. They already paid you to code it once, so we'd have to recycle it. The recycling of that script is totally based on the idea that they're going to give you the same format. If they change the order of the fields, your little alignment is doo-doo, and you have to realign everything. Well, Sally from marketing, whose idea of a technical challenge is understanding a 3-button mouse. She doesn't understand how to use a 3-button mouse, so she's going to do this export for you every Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon, you're going to get this file. Well, you need to go cut to the source and talk to Sally, have a training session, explain to her that she needs to do it in exactly the same way every time. Now, if you have IT people and they're going to code it, we're going to script it. It's going to be a stored procedure. You'll hear the word stored procedure, or a program that we run, or a macro they run, or some sort of PowerShell script. They might say PowerShell script. Those are all computer programs like FileMaker. If they build the computer program once and they run the same computer program without changing it, your format should be the same. The road to hell is paved with good intentions when I say should be the same. So just understand that that's what we're looking at on that. Just understand that that's an important part of the conversation. If your customer doesn't want to pay you 2 or 3 hours to do the import every time. HTML, you can export out of it through export to HTML format. You cannot import into HTML format. If you want to do that, you're probably going to need to use some sort of service to help you with that, or get ChatGPT, program it. It's a senior level skill set. Importing out of PDF, same thing. Print to PDF, not export to PDF. Export to HTML is doable. Note to intermediate fields, sub-summaries. I think sub-summaries are Thursday or Friday. Might have Calvin cover those with you. He's here with me somewhere. Should be here somewhere. Here's the deal. You can export out of FileMaker and give birth to a FileMaker file and preserve some of the rich text formatting. So when I say, like if I come over here to, here's a text field right here. This is raw text. This is text. If I'm able to apply a style and a color to like red and make it bold size 19, that's what they call rich text. It's kind of text, but it's got some extra styling in it. FileMaker would allow you to preserve that if you export out in the FileMaker format. So it's an FMP12 file format that gets kicked out. Make sense? That's an option. So it was up there when we said export.
We have a question.
Question, okay.
If you are importing from an open file, if another user is adding data to the open file, can that mess with the import command?
So that's a really great command. So let's talk about the scenario here. So, and this gets back to multi-user. Oh, Christian from Monkey Bread is here.
Oh!
Christian, come back here. Stand back behind here. They can't see you. We're on live stream right now. Christian, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Christian. Good to see you.
This is the maker of monkey spread software, where they take monkeys that are dying and they kill them, euthanize them, and grind them and turn them into monkey spread. Isn't that horrible? So let's talk about multi-session files real quick. So let me talk about this. So you've got your FileMaker file, right? And wherever it went, did I lose it? Here it is. Here's a FileMaker file. So it's on a server. Let's say it's on a server, and I do an import command on my computer. And as someone else is adding new records, as every record is added, it's committed and saved this server. The server will notify everyone who's looking at that file and push them the updated data. It generally sends them a record at a time. It might do it in bulk, but generally, if we start a script running and you're adding a record every second and you do an import, your import command will grab at that moment of time it begins to import, it will grab those records that it sees. Now, if you have a found set, set 21 black helicopters, we talk about 21 black helicopters, you have that found set, right? Then if someone else is adding records, you have your own isolated found set. They might add at number 22 or 23 black helicopter, but unless you do your find again, you won't know about it. So really, people don't run into each other, right? Now, if they delete a record and you're doing the import export, then you might thought you were going to export 500 records, but you get 495 records. And so you're like, how the hell did that happen? Then you go back and check your found set and it's 495, but it would have been 500, right? And you're like, how'd that happen? Well, someone was in there deleting records or something, right? So that's how that works. So it generally works as you would hope it would work. But as new records are added by user B, and the server gets those records, they're committed and say, we're going to talk about that, I guess, on Friday or Thursday with me. That's a good one. I'm really good at that topic. That's a good topic. Talking about multi-user solutions and really how the data is saved and how it goes back and forth. It gets into this issue of performance, but it's a fun conversation because once you understand how it works, it's pretty awesome. I love it. So, yeah.
We have a off-topic question.
Yes.
Off topic for the end of the hour. I am a subscriber. When I check my FileMaker file for updates, message displays that says my 19.6 is the latest version, but the latest version is 20.2, actually.
Yeah, why don't you send us an email to support RC Consulting? There's been some funkiness with Claris on the 20.2 release. We can send you, if you have a current subscriber, we'll send you a new downloader for that. What just so as a heads up for all of you here, okay, is I've got notification from Claris that they're tired of the pirate people stealing FileMaker. And what's going to happen is that if you don't have a current subscription, if you're on a subscription and it expires, they're going to turn it off, or if you're not paying for it. If you buy it perpetually, you get to keep it forever, but really that's kind of the expensive way of doing it. It's cheaper just to buy the subscription, stay up to date. But a lot of people buy the subscription knowing it's cheaper, then they never pay again, and it never uninstalls and it keeps working. It just is the way it is. It's not really anti-piracy, and they're going to turn that on. So I've been asked for clarification on when they're going to blow up a bunch of people who've been stealing the software, and those people are going to be really grumpy. But there's an issue with 20.2 updating properly or whatever it's supposed to do. So it may be that people who are current subscribers just get a clean install and install it. Okay. Send an email to support@rcconsulting.com. If you have a topic or a question you were dying for us to answer and we didn't answer it here because we're out of time now, let me know. Send me an email to support@rcconsulting. They'll pass that to me. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're spying Monkey Bread. He's over there slowly coming back to us. Christian Schmidt. He came out from Germany.
Yeah.
All the way from Germany. He really believes in the FileMaker community. He contributes to the FileMaker community a lot. Go buy his stuff. It's cheap. Cheap.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for like a
I'm not
beginner-
allowed to say cheap. Marketing people hate that. It's inexpensive. It's quality software. It's inexpensive. It's cheap. Trust me.
Even for like beginner users, you'll find it really useful.
I'm telling people to buy your software.
Because it color codes your stuff and it
Mhm.
autofills in variables and it puts a search function in relationship.
Well, even the
You're like,
free level of Monkey Bread is bad. So it offers certain features for free. Download it for free. Use the free features, but pay the money. All right. We have any other questions at all?
Nope. Just thank you. Good session. And then enjoy Pause on Air. We will see you all tomorrow, everybody, if Richard hasn't disappeared. So goodbye.
report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.